Ladies and gentlemen, selamat sejahtera dan selamat sepupu. We're honored today to have Miss Ravigadevi Sambanthamurthi. She is an esteemed scientist from Malaysia, Malaysia's very first Royal Society inductee. Congratulations, ma'am. It's an honor to speak with you.
Thank you so much, Victor. It's my honor, my pleasure to be here.
I am still shocked at the revelation that Miss Raviga delivered to me earlier, but basically I know all of her kids throughout the course of time. If you're out there, shout out to all of you out there. You are doing amazing. I now understand why you had like hundreds of different awards in your house at the moment. I see it all came from somewhere.
That's not true.
But having said that, we have lots of interesting things to talk about right here. We have an extremely accomplished member of the Malaysian community right here. In 2022, you received the Lifetime Achievement Award from Tan Sri Augustine Ong, if I'm not wrong, for your achievements in palm oil. You became a fellow of the World Academy of Sciences, Malaysia, which is interesting in and of itself. Then there's a whole list of different things that go all along here up until your Royal Society election. Congratulations once again.
Thank you.
Dr. Raviga here has a whole lot of incredible achievements, which I think that maybe the world doesn't know enough about yet at the moment. For example, you discovered, if I'm not wrong, the shell gene, and then there's the virescence, and then like there's this thing that's called the mantle, if I'm not wrong.
Oh, you really have done your homework.
I mean, I kind of had to, you know. I mean, like, it was fascinating that after all, you are the one who is studying the plant species called the Voldemort of the plant world. All right.
Palm is often called that. Can I say something
Sure,
before that?
of course.
Because you credited me with the discovery.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, I led the team.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot take complete credit for that. I had the honor of leading and working with this incredible team. So it's just not all my discovery, it's a joint discovery. That's very important to point out, because science, you cannot work alone. You can't work in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
It's always teamwork that makes the difference. So this is my team that I would really like to thank and acknowledge.
Wonderful. And congratulations to all of you for sharing in this joint and incredible achievement that has, without doubt, put Malaysia on the world map. And so, Dr. Raviga, if I could ask you a little bit about your education, how you ended up becoming the Dr. Raviga that we have today. Maybe could you share a little bit about what your environment was like when you were growing up and how you ended up getting involved or interested in this world of science?
I'm not sure how far back you want to go, but I studied at Convent Bukit Nanas.
Ah.
Amazing school. So that gave me a lot of good, sound education. And then, having completed my Form 6 at Convent Bukit Nanas, I was interested in pursuing science further. I'd always been somehow awestruck by science.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to continue with science. Quite different from Indian families. Everybody wants to be a lawyer, doctor, right? But I really wanted to be a scientist. So I went to University College London to do my PhD.
Mm.
And I worked on something called chromosome mapping of a particular bacteria. Now, PhD was not meant to define what I'm finally going to do. A PhD is basically an apprenticeship for you to do research. Right? So I believe that I developed tools in biotechnology to carry out research. So having completed my PhD at UCL, then I came back home and was looking for a job. Right? And I had opportunities. I went to work in academia. But my eyes were actually set on oil palm.
Wow. You knew what you wanted from the very beginning.
I did.
Wow. That's amazing.
Oil palm was so attractive. At that time, Malaysia was the world's largest producer of palm oil. Right? But so little was actually known about the science of it. Many aspects of the science of it.
Yeah.
Like, we want as much oil as possible. We want quality oil. But at that time, we didn't know the biochemistry, how the oil was synthesized. I thought this was an opportunity for me that I could contribute whatever knowledge I had gained from my PhD. You know, so I used my expertise in that in an area I thought it was really going to help for national development. So that was my thought process at that time. When
Wow. And important it is. If I'm not wrong, so oil palm is anywhere between 3 to 5% of our entire GDP. And given that agriculture is about like 7%, thereabouts, so that literally means like 50% of Malaysia's agricultural exports is, well, more or less like raised on like what you do, which is really incredible. And now, it's also interesting because I'm fascinated by this question of education, partly because it shapes a person to such a great degree, of course. But it almost seems, Dr. Raviga, that you've come full circle, almost. And then the reason I say full circle is that, you know, you completed your PhD in University College London, the school otherwise known as the home of the godless scum of Gower Street once upon a time. No, I did my research. It went in some strange directions. But also, you're going back to London after all of these years, July 11th, where you will pen your name in that historic charter, joining, by the way, luminaries such as Isaac Newton, Stephen Hawking, and also a whole lot of other scientists who have been recognized in this historic manner. Dr. Raviga, I'm curious. When we take part in significant moments in our lives, we may sometimes quote in some sort of meaning that we want to remember about those moments when they actually happen. When you sign your name, when you open up that vellum, the book, and you finally write your name there, can you give us an idea of what you will be thinking about or what you will be remembering at that moment?
Actually, I mean, I'm kind of nervous about it.
Okay.
Yes, but it's almost like a validation of all that you have done and believed in. It's like a validation of your lifelong journey, you know. It's
Lifelong- wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a one-off thing, right? It's recognition. It's for a whole lifetime. It's really a lifetime journey of sciences. It's not just a shell gene that you talked about. Right? It's a whole scientific journey. So in a way, it's a wonderful recognition, personally, for what I've done. But more importantly, for the teams I've led. You know, it's just not about me. I mean, I'm that signing it. I'm going to get the award. But it's actually a recognition of the entire team. My wonderful team I work with, but also the Malaysian Palm Oil Board for providing that ecosystem where science could thrive. Malaysian science as well. I mean, because we need money to do science. So all the funding we got, all the support we got. So I think it's a wonderful moment to know that, wow, everything has come through. And also that Malaysia boleh, MPOB boleh,
Wow.
pasukan saya boleh, saya boleh.
That is wonderful.
And of course, my family, they're all going to be there.
Yes.
And when it happened, what if I could without their support, their quiet support, you know, we don't talk much about them. But this is also an acknowledgement for me as a mother, a wife, sister, daughter. So thank you to my family as well.
Yeah.
It's a whole ecosystem I have to be thankful for.
Yeah.
Not me, I'm just a representative there.
But then, like, your kids end up going to MIT, to Harvard, and then off to start on your law firms and a whole range of other things. Of course, I mean, we could go on for a long time about that, but yeah, well, definitely. And just to kind of touch on like what you were talking about earlier, I find it fascinating the energy that you bring into discussing like the Malaysian scientific ecosystem. Because like when we hear about all of those stories about like Malaysia, for example, you hear stories of anemic research, university departments being slashed, you hear about maybe slightly less than inviting environments maybe for like scholarship, research, thinking, maybe even speech, amongst other things. But I find it just so incredible, like that you are able to really like look to Malaysia and basically think about all of this right here. Like when you think really about the experience that you've had so far, what do you feel made the biggest difference about being in Malaysia that contributed towards your success?
I'm not sure that so much Malaysia, but I have to especially thank the Malaysian Palm Oil Board.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're talking about anemic research and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sorry to say, but negative news always gets the loudest voice, so you hear about all that. But it's all a good thing, which unfortunately don't get that loud a voice. That's right.
Yes.
So I have to say that at least at Malaysian Palm Oil Board and the oil palm industry,
Mm-hmm.
our research was very focused.
Mhm.
We had, ours was goal oriented, right? The industry had certain problems, we had to solve it.
Mhm.
So I think that gave us a lot of focus,
Mhm.
right? And also the tremendous support from my bosses, from the ministry.
Mhm.
All this couldn't have happened without that.
Mm.
So I think that played an extremely important role, right?
Mm.
And collaboration.
Wow. Mhm.
Yes. Many people, I'm sorry to say, in Malaysia,
Mhm.
not just universities, I think in industry, they like to work in silos.
Mhm.
No, my research, I don't want to share.
Mhm.
I think that is the biggest downfall for
Mm.
scientists, right?
Mm.
I believe in collaboration,
Mm.
including especially international collaboration,
Mhm.
because that allows you to break boundaries, and accelerate your research.
Mhm.
There's only so much you can do as one person. There's only so much money that you have.
Mm.
Right? So where are you going to spend that money? I'd rather keep it, certain things are cheaper outsourced,
Mhm.
rather than you trying to buy equipment and which you buy today, tomorrow it's already outdated, right? So we strategized, so we work with wonderful partners overseas, and all that. MPOB allowed that. MPOB encouraged collaboration.
Wow.
So I think I just cannot say one thing made this happen.
Mhm.
It's many, many things, many dots all fitted together and made this.
Wow. It's kind of like that Steve Jobs commencement speech whereby he talks about how you can only connect the dots backwards when he was like thinking about like his entire career, about how everything kind of like fit together,
Right.
which is fascinating.
It's true because it's not something that happened overnight, right? It
Mhm.
were so many people played a role, so many circumstances played a role,
Uh-huh.
so many problems played a role. because science is about solving problems.
Right,
so
right.
It's that whole energy that made it happen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Well, I guess the Malaysian public, right, in many cases, they might know a little bit about what MPOB does. Here and there, they might have this like idea that maybe, like they go and provide licensing, amongst other things. But let me ask this question in two different ways. Number one, what do you feel was the most personally significant aspect of working for MPOB for you personally, Dr. Raviga? And the second part is, what do you think that Malaysians should know about this agency that has basically facilitated, funded, made possible the life's work that you've committed yourself to?
I think being allowed to lead a very high impact research that made a huge difference. And believing that allowing us to be curious, quite money. So we had to convince them. So we actually sequenced in our farm. But there were many things we did. One of the major discoveries was actually sequencing the oil palm genome. In for those who are not in the science, it's basically like discovering the genetic blueprint of oil palm. So we did that. But it costs money. And of course it's getting cheaper now, but at that time it's more high cost. We had to actually convince when the Prime Minister at that time, it's a long journey, I tell you, at that time it was cheaper, but I was convincing him that NPOB had to do it. So, and the faith they had in me, in my team, that they could do it. I think that made all the difference. And also allowing us to collaborate. Everything keeping Malaysia, just some people have that mentality, you don't want it to go out. But honestly, science is global. You cannot keep science inside a coconut shell. It really has to go out. So that belief in MPOB management, I think that made a world of difference. As for MPOB, for those who don't know, before it became MPOB, it was actually PORIN, the Palm Oil Research Institute of Malaysia. And at that time, we focused purely on research, and that was where I joined. I joined PORIN. But then in 2000, PORIN was merged with another agency, PORLA, Palm Oil Research Licensing and Registration Office. So these two entities merged and it became MPOB. So a large part of MPOB's commitment to research, but it also involved registration. Yeah. So, but of course, I am in the research. I'm retired from that now.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Thank you for that. So I do want to touch a little bit on, well, this idea that you gave in this Academy of Sciences Malaysia video right here. And this is just more of like a question, right? Just for the sort of public awareness right here. But you can go online on YouTube and you can find a video of Dr. Raviga explaining a lot of this stuff right here about palm oil very eloquently with lots of different things which will be educational for you for sure. But Dr. Raviga, why do you say that palm oil is the Lord Voldemort of the...
I did not say that palm oil, oil palm is the Lord Voldemort, but I know...
You know that people call it...
People refer to it as the Lord Voldemort, and that's because they don't fully understand the problem. Right?
I see, okay.
Right. So maybe also a lot of bad publicity from the West, right? Oil palm has been blamed for deforestation, and for environmental issues. The famous ones, they are killing the orangutan. So we hear all that, right? And there is some truth to it. You cannot deny it. All this has happened in the past. But to keep on saying that that's what's happening is not true. In the past, there was deforestation, not just in Malaysia, in Indonesia, for planting oil palm. And don't forget, even before we deforested, the British deforested our forests for rubber.
Oh yes,
right?
That is a dear thing.
Oil palm actually replaced rubber, so that was not deforestation. But cannot be denied there was deforestation. But that's not what's happening now. And the oil palm, many people may not realize, is the most productive oil palm in the world. It is about, depends on which calculation, but 7 to 10 times more productive than soy. Right? So, for those who are calling for a boycott of oil palm, so boycott Lord Voldemort. What alternatives do you have? We have to clear 7 to 10 times more land somewhere else to get the same amount of oil. So the public doesn't seem to appreciate that fully. I feel. So you have to appreciate that we need oil. So which oil do we use? To me, this is the most important oil in the world. And I have to say that oil palm only occupies about, I think it's 2% world agricultural land. But if you just confine to oil crops, oil palm only occupies about 7% of the land occupied by oil crop species. 7%. But it is contributing to 35% of the world's oil. So, I mean, that's amazing. Just a little bit of land. But unfortunately, of course, it's in the tropics, it's ecologically sensitive. We all know that. But it is the most productive crop. So what do? We have to make it more sustainable. That's the only. We cannot boycott the crop. We cannot get around oil palm. Oil palm is here to stay. But it is very, very important that we grow it as sustainably as possible. That was what our research is about. Improve the productivity so that you can grow more on less land, so that you clear less land.
Wow. Yeah, and that is one of like the world's big discoveries essentially. I mean, like you can find like palm oil like in all sorts of different products around the world essentially. But wow, so thank you for sharing that. This might be kind of like a fun question almost, but Of all the products in the entire world that make use of palm oil at this stage that you can find in the market or anywhere else, what would you say is your favorite palm oil product?
Favorite palm oil product? That's a hard question.
Or
I mean, I suppose the vegetable oil itself is so important.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, that is the most, I think, used oil because that's a source of energy, a source of food, for food security. So I would say the oil itself as a source of, for cooking, as a cooking oil.
As a cooking oil, right? Because like there are two different types of palm oil, right? If I'm not wrong. So like that would be like the kind that is from the
So,
there's like mesocarp and then there's like another one which is like basically the kernel, yeah. So that would be mesocarp oil.
so two types of oil, not palm
Yeah,
oil.
yeah.
Palm oil refers to the mesocarp oil.
Ah, yes.
The orange oil, right? And then the kernel oil is what's inside the nut.
Ah.
Two types of. In fact, I think the oil palm is only crop that produces two types of oil. So palm oil is what you get from the mesocarp. That's your cooking oil. Kernel oil is not so much used for cooking. It's very similar actually to that oil. It's used more for oleochemical purposes, making soaps and things like that. It's very high-end oil. Less for food, more for oleochemical.
All right, so thank you for that. You know, I find it very interesting also though, that you developed like this passion for palm oil and how you were thinking that it was something relevant to Malaysia and therefore you decided to do it for your country. I think that's like one of the most patriotic things I've ever heard from somebody like who was considering coming back to Malaysia. I mean, a lot of people, you know, like who end up, for example, getting degrees, for example, from like UCL or who end up having the privilege to study overseas. Well, it seems nowadays that like the default meta game, if we can say, is for people to just say, "Whoop, all right, it's time to run away." But that did not occur to you, Dr. Raviga?
It never occurred to me.
It never occurred
But
to you.
don't forget, I'm in a different generation
I see.
as well, right? But of course, there were many who stayed back. In fact, many of my school friends are actually in Australia, UK, too.
Uh-huh.
But Malaysia simply, it never ever occurred to me to.
It never occurred to you.
No, not to migrate. No.
Wow.
I'm
Okay.
pretty happy here.
we're very lucky to have you because like otherwise today like you know you could be Royal Society nominee from Singapore.
Oh, talking about it, yeah, I am the first Malaysian,
You are.
but there was an ex-Malaysian, I believe,
Uh-huh.
who's no more a Malaysian many years ago, who became British citizen, and he's actually a fellow of the Royal Society,
I see.
but not a Malaysian anymore.
I see. Okay. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah,
Ooh.
so no. We have lost people, I agree, but no, that was not in the plans at all. So,
It was not in your plans at all.
no. Family here, and it's a lovely country, friends here. Plus, I'm definitely rooted in Malaysia. Nice for visits overseas, yes, but this is where I am.
That's where you are. Okay, wow, wonderful. Cool. So, when we think about, well, the whole concept of science, though, we tend to think of it as something that's very much, shall we say, cognitive. We tend to think of it as something that is very much like based on, like, say, research. But would you say, Miss Raviga, that, like, in any way, like, you consider yourself a spiritual person in any way? Or, like,
I think it's a huge connection. I really think that science and spirituality are not mutually exclusive. But I think they are on complementary paths.
wow.
Yeah, I think both are in search of the truth. They're using different lenses, but both are in search of the truth, right? And like I've worked now more on planetary health and things like that. And more, I think the scientists are seeing the interconnectedness of nature, of life, which the spiritual people had already said long time ago, you know.
Wow.
You know, even our let's say our indigenous folks and all that, you know, be stewards of your environment, you know, be kind to nature. That's all spiritual. But now, when we as scientists look at planetary health, our health is so intricately linked with the forest. I mean, look at zoonosis. Look at what happened to our Nipah virus. It's all connected. So I think spirituality is very important, especially in I think in our Asian civilization, where we play more emphasis on spirituality. Even the scientists are reckoning how important actually this is. Because ethics, compassion, all that are part of your spiritual tradition, right? Now, I think the scientists are saying, yes, it's just not all about you. It's all about the animals, the forest, all the beings, all the things. It's just not all about you. So I think in that sense, there's a huge connection. So definitely, they are not mutually exclusive. They are connected.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you so much for that. Well, when you think about the next generations of Malaysian scientists or people who would be Malaysian scientists, what would you say to them?
I would tell them the future is actually in their hands, right? And anything is actually possible if you put your heart and mind to it. They have to dream big. They should not be afraid of dreaming. But at the same time, they also must be grounded. You can't be just dreaming and that. So you have to be grounded also, and you have to get your basics right. You have to get of course, your basic education in science, right? Get that strong, and then be committed. Get yourself mentors. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Never stop learning. I haven't stopped learning. But never stop learning.
We can tell.
Yes, even now. So never stop learning. Just don't be afraid of failure. Because I always say failure is the stepping stone to success. So just go for it. I mean, everything is so connected with science. The people say there is no future in science, but the future is, everything of the future is about science. So go for it, young generation. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Well, a penultimate question before we close. Do you have any hopes for, the future of science or perhaps for this planet in the wake of your world-shaking achievement and this new recognition that you've gotten?
Definitely the Royal Society, it's a very powerful platform. It's always been about science, right? Evidence-based. So I hope that I can use this platform that I'm now in. And it's not just about me, because it's about everybody, not just Royal Society fellows, but everybody who's passionate about science. To move science forward for the sake of the planet. Science for good. Because science can also be used for a lot of destruction. Unfortunately, like what's happening now in the world.
Right.
Right. But science is such a powerful tool for doing good for the planet. Look at AI, how powerful it has become. But of course, don't let it become too powerful.
Super intelligence.
Yeah, we need AI.
That's right, yeah.
Evolution of science, you can see happening now, right?
Right.
How AI is such an important area now of science. And AI can do so much. Right? It can actually augment human intellect. And I suppose it can also accelerate discovery. It's a huge thing we can use for improving the planet. But we have to be in control at the end.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, we recall Robert J. Oppenheimer's words when he said at the Manhattan Project test, I am become death.
I have become death. That was from the Bhagavad Gita.
Bhagavad Gita, right. Absolutely.
Yes. So
right.
it can be used for destruction.
It can be.
So science must be guided by ethics. That's where spirituality also comes in.
Wonderful.
So otherwise, this yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And my final question for you is, if you were to share a message with the world and to everyone out there that you consider to be important for, you personally or the future of the planet at large, then what might that message be?
The point of view of being a scientist, just what I said, use science for good. Science is such a powerful tool for doing good. And that's what science is about. We should be guided, right, by proper critical thinking and ethics, right? And science actually should be rooted in a benefit to mankind, to society, to the planet. That's what science is all about. That's what you should be doing, expecting of science. And that is what I hope happens. Like my work that can improve sustainability, improve health. And I hope more people realize how important science is actually for the planet, but science done right.
Wonderful.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Raviga, and congratulations once again to you, your team, your family, and the entire country for sharing in this achievement
And
with
the
you.
Malaysian Palm Oil Board.
And the Malaysian Palm Oil Board. Yes, that's right.
And the Academy of Sciences, they are actually promoting good science, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, so this all played an important role. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Okay. Well, congratulations to all of you, and thank you, Dr. Raviga, for being a part of this podcast. Thank you so much. Terima kasih.